trying to think of the other major areas, but.
What about like tax issues, like
tax appeals
foreclosure?
The foreclosures are referred out. We have developed a list of outside counsel who handle those, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Those are all paid for by the individual where the action is being brought against, so it's not
proceeds.
Exactly, proceeds. I've tried to expand it. When I first came to the Corporation Counsel's office, we had a very thin list of individuals who were handling foreclosures. I've tried over the time that I've been in the office to expand that list to have about a dozen different lawyers, some of whom are in town, so I can try and avoid some of the obvious internal conflicts within the community. Bristol being what it is, there's an awful lot of interrelationships amongst people, so we try refer the more complex items or the items that would obviously be of some conflict to individuals outside of the city of Bristol. But there's about a dozen folks who handle those matters. As far as direct tax appeals, those are primarily handled by Attorney Conlon in our office, working with Mr. DeMille.
And do you feel the staffing arrangements that we have now are adequate? I mean, not that anyone feels that, I suppose, about their workload, but I mean, is there anything significant that has changed in the years you've been working here, you know, that would change the configuration that we currently have? Or
I think in general, we do a pretty good job with what we have. There is one part-time attorney position that is funded but unfilled in our office. That's sort of been our give back as we've talked about spending within our office. There's very little that we can control in that regard. We've tried to a large extent to handle risk management in the most efficient fashion that we can, and I think we've been very good at doing that. If you're asking me what a long-term prognosis for the city would be in the legal department, I would suggest that some research and some study. It's not news to anybody. I've actually had this conversation with many members of the Board of Finance and the Personnel Office and the like. I think areas where the city could begin to manage its own costs would be in the area of hiring internally an attorney who would do labor matters for us and environmental.
Currently, that isn't?
Those are generally speaking handled outside of the office. The personnel director with the advice and counsel, as I'm sure you're aware of the Corporation Counsel and the mayor, will hire outside to handle different kinds of matters. The last administration did not have legal representation in any of our labor negotiations in the room doing the negotiating. It was the personnel director and the mayor at that time. I have no idea what this mayor intends to do in that regard. Environmental matters is a second area that has been a large cost center for the city of Bristol. We've spent millions and millions of dollars over the last 20 years in environmental matters outside. And I think those would be two areas that are very specific, that if we were trying to reorganize the office in a major way, that would be helpful. I think in addition, within our office, and I didn't mean to spend so much time on this, but I think some additional paralegal staffing would be certainly helpful. But
what do you currently have?
We have a full-time individual, and we have a young woman who works 18 hours, who is a college student who helps us in staff.
And you referred before to the full-time counsel. You're not all full-time?
No.
Counsel?
No. The Corporation Counsel is, can't resist, but we're asked to do an awful lot as part-timers, but I am technically a part-time employee. Attorney Simonik is a part-time employee, and the two full-timers are attorneys Lacey and Conlon.
So do you and Attorney Simonik have private practice in addition to?
We do.
Is that overwhelming at times?
It is.
How do you manage that?
Magically. I have I've been personally lucky to have other folks that I can, give work that I can't attend to when I have to do city work. But, you manage it. It's been a historical position.
Thank you for all that information.
Sure.
Any other discussion?
Since we brought this topic up, I guess I'm concerned about some of the outside counsel issues. Where do we stand? So you did that presentation, which was very helpful, but where are we with downtown? Who handles downtown? Is that the council that I thought the BDDC has? And who is that?
I didn't mention BDDC. BDDC has their own legal counsel. It is Attorney DiBiase, who is with, the new firm name is, thank you, Hinckley Allen. They just merged with the old Levy Droney law firm, and that is who provides legal representation to BDDC. When the issues apply to you all in the city, our office has been handling it up to this point. I think you might recall, Councilwoman, that we had used on a pro bono basis the services of Bingham McCutcheon when we had negotiated the preferred developer agreement. The attorney who had been handling our environmental matters in that firm for many years came back to us and offered as a pro bono to help us in the drafting of that agreement. So we've tried to be creative in those endeavors, but that service has ended. That contract is in full play, and that's what the Renaissance folks are working on now.
So BDDC has their legal counsel.
They do, yes,
And your office interfaces,
all the time.
and you attend those meetings.
They do.
Okay. So how do we avoid conflicts with all of these pieces? Because from what I recall, we had issues early on in my last council career with certain attorneys, none of whom are still employed with the city, who had private practices. So now I'm trying to put the pieces together of how all of these are coming together and all of us are not conflicted, because isn't it still the same standard that if you're conflicted, so are the
whole
other three?
offices. And in general, we've been very lucky that we haven't had any obvious conflicts on any matters affecting that operation. I don't know that there are any on its face, and I certainly don't know of any that are in the waiting.
Can you define obvious?
Probably not, but if one of us as outside counsel represent individuals in the open marketplace, then and they begin to become involved in the downtown project, obviously we have a conflict and we would need to not involve ourselves in that activity. That's obvious. I think what we often do in our office in our regular meetings, we spend a lot of time talking to each other about the kind of work that we do and who our clients are. So we're constantly internally asking and cross-referencing who the individuals are that are involved. It's much the same practice that individuals in private practice use. We have risk management software packages that are constantly looking at clients that we've had, people that we've had relationships with previously, to verify that we aren't overlapping with somebody who we've had activities with in the past, that either in a adversarial fashion or in a way that is on the same side.
So if you were to go outside for counsel for one matter and it involved certain people, wouldn't you then have to go outside on other matters if it involved the same people?
I'm not sure I follow what you're asking.
It was my understanding that there were certain matters recently that were sent to outside counsel. So I guess I'm trying to put,
With regard to the BDDC?
actually with regard to Jennings School, the closing for Jennings School. So if that went to outside counsel, I guess I'm just concerned about the delineation between your office, which I believe frankly should have another person because of your workload, and I'm sure it's only increased since the last time I was here. But if that matter went to outside counsel, why isn't BDDC strictly outside counsel? Because it seems to me there's some similar players.
I don't know that there are any similar players to that dialogue. I think you might be assuming there are some. But there have been, we are dealing solely and totally with Renaissance. Renaissance may in fact be somewhere down the road having negotiations with parties that were involved in Jennings School, as you mentioned, and others, but we have no direct interaction with those folks.
If they bring on partners themselves, the dotted line goes directly to Renaissance, and we are not affected by anyone they so choose.
Well, we might be, Councilwoman, and I don't want to say that we aren't totally or ever, but at this moment, we certainly have no conflicts.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Assistant Corporate